It just means more. And it actually does. Glad to have you with us on the College Game Day podcast. Rece Davis, Pete Thamel, and Dan Wetzel with the SEC preview. It just means more. You know, people from outside the SEC once sneered and seethed at that claim that was more a statement of fact than a slogan, and the conferences piled up crown after crown, often beating one of their own foes to do it. And if they beat a non-league foe, the champion didn't waste any time telling you that their SEC games were way tougher than any BCS or college football playoff game, while those inside the SEC continue to insist they haven't lost a step, and the wear and tear this season just wears them down more than anything else. Don't believe it. It's not true. The SEC has lost a step. Now, those outside the SEC, particularly those from B1G territory, just absolutely delirious with the schadenfreude, are usually only experienced in rage fantasies or Kill Bill, Gladiator, Revenge of the Nerds type movies where the bullies finally get theirs. Dan, Pete, the SEC has been getting theirs in the postseason, particularly in the playoff over the last 3 years.
Yeah, the wear and tear is just from people from all of us having to listen to those excuses. They have not been good enough. It's that simple. They are not the best league at the top, and they are not the best league in the middle. And the metric I am using, it's a really, really complicated analytic you may not understand, guys. It's called head-to-head matchups. They just keep losing them. And I don't care if you have to play on the road and it's really loud or it's really hot or whatever it is. The SEC's teams are not as good as the Big Ten teams. They are not, and they have not been in recent years. And that is because talent has been spread. Dan Wetzel told us this would happen when NIL came. He said it would be a boon for the sport because the talent would be dispersed, and dispersed it has. And that has not boded well for those in geographic areas that could hoard the talent in the past. Right, Dan?
Apparently, I'm the only person in college athletics who took an economics class. So is an unbelievable concept that talent, that increasing wages, allowing the ability to pay would increase. Really wasn't a big deal, except every single person in college athletics, I don't think any of them actually went to school. I have no idea. Maybe it's just that fine economics department at the University of Massachusetts that got me right. We can't win a football game, but we can predict what's going to happen to the sport. Look, SEC... Literally 0-12, 0-12, but perfect on this. SEC, they pranced around as the bullies, as Rece said, because they were the bullies. They were right. There was nothing anybody could do. That was the problem. You could not sit there and wait. SEC, we're the biggest, the baddest. And you go, oh, no, you're not. No, you're not. Well, we annihilate you in the playoffs, humiliate you in the BCS championship game, have, 240 of the 256 NFL draft pick, crazy stuff. We just signed, Georgia just got 16 of the top 100 recruits. Like, there was nothing for anybody. It was like a Ohio State and a prayer. That was about all that was left. Clemson became America's team, and they're basically SEC. So the rest of the country was just screwed. And now the tables have turned. You can pay players. You can transfer freely. All sorts of different things have come into play, and the talent has spread out, and now that SEC advantage isn't there, and it's a fascinating spot for the league. I love going into seasons, I'll be quick here, about the history, the historic nature of college football. Where are we in the history of this great sport? And to me, the idea that we could go 4 consecutive years without the SEC winning a national title is amazing. To suggest that 4 years ago, the podcast would have been canceled, right? To suggest that the day Michigan defeated the Rose Bowl, Michigan defeats Alabama in the Rose Bowl, overtime, classic game. Michigan goes on to win the title. That game we may look back on as the true end of an era. A, last game for Nick Saban. B, it's the last time The SEC has not had a team even in the play for the national title since the year before. It stopped probably Alabama. Whoever was winning that Alabama-Michigan game, no offense, Washington was going to win the national championship. That stopped the SEC from winning. Okay, one time, hey, whatever. Second year, Ohio State, Indiana. Where are we right now? The SEC needs to win this. Needs to win one of these things.
I would argue that while I'm in full agreement that the Big Ten has a lead, I don't think there's some giant gap. I think the perception that there's a giant gap is based on two games. It's based in the first year of the 12-team playoff, Tennessee getting destroyed at Ohio State 42-17, and then Alabama getting annihilated by Indiana in the Rose Bowl. All of the other playoff games and the bowl games that the Big Ten rightfully brags about, you're talking about 4-point game, 6-point game, 4, 3, 2 touchdowns on a late scoop and score in the Ohio State-Texas game, 2 points, 7 points. You're talking a bunch of close games that have gone the Big Ten's way. They've been better than the SEC. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think there's some giant gap to it. But that said, you think we've already made SEC fans mad? This is really going to make them mad. You know what the SEC feels like right now? It feels a lot like the Big 12. And here's what I mean by that. If you win your close games, you're good. If you lose your close games, you're bad, because all of the games are pretty much close, because there have been no elite teams the last 2 years for sure. Maybe I would argue the last 3. There's been a lot of good. There hasn't been any great. You want some numbers to back this up? I'll give them to you. Georgia, your reigning SEC champion. In 7 of their 8 SEC regular season games last year, they trailed. 4 of their wins were fourth quarter comebacks. They won the championship. Alabama played in the SEC championship game. They were the top seed. There was a 4-way tie for first place, and because of Alabama's schedule, they were the number 1 seed. They won 4 one-score games. Oklahoma made the college football playoff. They won 4 one-score games. You say, okay, well, that's the good teams. The bad teams at the other end, the terrible teams in the SEC, Auburn, 6 of their 7 SEC losses by 1 score. And one of those that wasn't 1 score, they got a terrible call in the Georgia game that flipped that game and ended up being a 10-point game. Even Arkansas didn't win a single SEC game last year, yet 4 of their losses were by 1 possession. A&M went to the playoff, 2 of their victories against 2 of the worst teams in the league by a grand total of 4 points, and they had to come from 4 touchdowns behind to win one of those against South Carolina. So there's a Big 12 feel to this iteration of the SEC right now, in that, not that it's not elevated above what the Big 12 was during that time, and probably is right now, but there's a feeling like these teams aren't separated by much. There's no elite. There are no great teams. So if you can find a way to win your close games, you're going to have a good year. And if you don't find a way to win your close games, and you're probably going to be on the coaching carousel, which there are a lot of new coaches in the SEC as well. So, guys, we're going to divide this into 2 podcasts. Dan had a great idea, maybe because there's not a lot to define truly who might be elite in the SEC. You make a case for and a case against the teams that we have dubbed contenders. Who that might be could be anybody's guess. I'm an AP poll voter. I don't have a single SEC team in the top 5. Now, I don't have a single one in my preseason top 5. Now, could one win the national championship? You bet they could. But
Who's
now,
your top?
My number 1 team?
Yeah.
The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame.
Oh, no, I meant your top SEC team. But that's good to know, too.
No, top
Top
SEC team is Georgia.
Okay.
And we can start there. Until Texas proves to me they can beat Georgia, and Texas probably hired its defensive coordinator, Will Muschamp, not only because of his former Texas ties, but because they're hoping to steal some state secrets that Muschamp has from being in Athens the last few years and find a way to get past them. Until I see them beat them, I'm going to pick Georgia. So I've buried the lead a little bit here. So let's go ahead and start with the Dogs if you're going to put them at tier 1. Dan, you know what? I'll give you first swing at this. Give me a case for and a case against Georgia.
Well, I'll start with two things on the case for. One, Coach Kirby Smart knows how to win. They have proven as a program they're capable of getting this done. They know how to close these things out. They got 2 national titles, and they've got, you give Kirby a loaded roster, he's generally not going to mess this thing up. And they've been good. So, just look at them on paper. They can absolutely win the national championship, and no one would be surprised if they are doing it. And the second's quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, is back. And so, again, that kind of adds to the stability of a lot of talent. The case against, I guess, would be, are they good enough on offense? Will they be good enough against those elite defenses as they get deeper into a playoff or something like that? But look, I would probably have Georgia in my top 5, but I don't know. It doesn't really matter at the preseason, but I don't think anyone would be surprised if Georgia gets this done.
So the case for, we can just call it the hard to kill case. That's what Kirby said last year, which I thought was awesome, because they were hard to kill and they slugged it out. And a lot of that is culture. So, the case for is rooted in the right places. I would add defensive tackle to the case for. If we're going to get in the nitty gritty, Rece, you and I, we're going to talk about some line play, right? Elijah Griffin, sophomore, was a 5-star recruit. He is one of those Georgia defensive linemen that we saw, that caliber of dynamic, large human that we saw on those back-to-back title teams. So, again, not that they haven't had that, but he is going to be a different cut in that interior for them. The case against, to me, is Gunnar Stockton has been excellent, but he's not elite. Right? I hate to make the Joe Flacco argument here. He has been good enough to win enough, but he has not proven to be good enough to push them through. Now, he's obviously, his first playoff game against Notre Dame was put in a really tough spot as a spot starter for Carson Beck after getting an SEC title game, and he just did okay. He has proven to be very good and a championship quarterback, but when the lights are actually the brightest in the top, is he there? And then, do they have, with London Humphreys and Jacoby White-Helton and Isaiah Canyon now, enough high-end skill out wide to blow the top off defenses and to give them a little bit more dynamism? So those would be my two.
Now I'm picking Georgia to win it, so I lean case for.
Sure,
but the case against is just what you said. It's Gunnar Stockton / turning Gunnar Stockton loose. He averaged 6 3/4 air yards per pass attempts. Among 83 FBS quarterbacks that threw at least 300 balls last year, 4th lowest. A bunch of hitches, a bunch of screens, 112 screen passes. Now, Miami threw more, but Miami went to the national championship game and almost won. I'm not saying you can't win this way, but maybe they need something else. And maybe they were throwing hitches and screens for not so much because of any Gunnar Stockton problem, but because their offensive line hasn't been good enough. They've run the ball fine. They've protected fine at times. It hasn't been elite. Needs to be elite. They've got 2 All-America caliber players in the secondary, and Ellis Robinson and KJ Bolden. Raylan Wilson's been great at linebacker. I think Georgia wins the SEC. I think Georgia answers all the questions. But if their offensive line isn't up to par, if it doesn't get better, if they don't get more explosive, the thing that could kill them, they get left in too many close games. They don't have 4 fourth-quarter rallies for victories this year. They don't come from behind 7 of 8 times, and they lose 3 and don't make the playoff. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's the case against Georgia if you have one. And if any team is going to be picked ahead of Georgia in the SEC, it's going to be Texas. I think the case for them, Pete, is pretty obvious. Arch Manning takes the year 2 jump. Cam Coleman rivals Jeremiah Smith as the best receiver in America, if not the best player in college football. They've got 2 home run hitters out of the backfield from the portal, and Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. On the other side, Colin Simmons led the SEC in sacks last year. Now he's got Coach Boom and Will Muschamp, and maybe it's like it was back in the day when Muschamp was on the 40 acres. They led the nation in sacks over a 3-year period when Muschamp was the defensive coordinator. Now he's got Simmons to work with. There are a lot of cases for the Longhorns to step up and win the league and be a national championship contender.
So I'm just going to call back one thing that you said because it really hit my ear. If I was to ever move to Athens in my twilight and start an REM cover band, I would name it 112 Screens. That's a lot of screens.
What about Miami? Would you have an EDM or a Miami sound machine thing and call it 125 screens? They ran more screens.
Yeah, I mean, they also had Malachi Toney. So you could argue that like those screens could really take the top off of defense, just not in a conventional way. 112 screens. That's a lot of screens. Yes, and Miami would have that too. So yeah, Texas is fascinating to me because the change at DC to go to the Case 4 was not obvious, right? It wasn't like screaming that Pete Kwiatkowski wasn't good enough. They needed that, but it was a little bit Saban-y where like Sark said, okay, we're going to go get better here and really dive in. And Kwiatkowski's a very good coordinator, but that it's certainly not the statement that was there. Yeah, the toys are also the Case 4. Hollywood Smothers at back, Raleek Brown at back. I mean, Raleek Brown, may end up being the backup running back, and he was the Big 12, first team all league tailback last year. And Cam Coleman's preposterous. I mean, he's just ridiculous. They have so many toys. They ran off Parker Livingstone to go to their rival. So, there is a lot of 4 there. I will be curious, interior defensive line, do they have the muscle with Hero Kanu and Alex January and Ian Giffard coming over? Like, that is one place where I'm not convicted about Texas. Like, pound for pound, interior defensive line, will they get pushed around there? They certainly have some wonderful players on defense, and they're going to have some high draft picks. So those would be my cases, Dan.
Case 4 is simply Arch Manning. I think increasingly in college football, as all this talent has spread out, having an elite quarterback is a significant. It's always been a significant advantage. I always want a great quarterback, but quarterbacks change the game more than any other player. Arch was really good by the end of the year, and I give him a lot of credit. I'm not going to say this guy's lived some hard life of adversity. He is a Manning, but he was getting piled on at the beginning of last year, and he just kept going and going and getting a little better and getting a little better. If he makes that next step, they could have the best quarterback in the country. They could have that elite player who's going to pull out those big games to win a national title. So there's going to be a lot of pressure again on Arch Manning, a lot of expectations this year. I think he's better built for it. The problem, case against, is the schedule. Same reason they missed the playoff last year could be this schedule. Ohio State at home, at Tennessee, Oklahoma and the Red River, Ole Miss visits, at LSU, at Texas A&M. If you lose 3 of those games, you're not in this playoff probably. And that does not count the problem of all Texas teams, or many Texas teams of late. They always look good in the offseason. They always look good on paper. Can they have the mental focus that a championship team needs to not play poorly against weaker teams? And they still have, I wouldn't even call these guys weak. You have tough games at Missouri, Florida visits, right? They lost to Florida last year. Can they maintain that consistency right through each week and not take weeks off? Because this is too hard of a schedule not to be perfect. So that's my case against Texas.
I think the case against Texas is if Arch Manning sort of reprises the role of his grandfather and gets a snot kicked out of him every week behind shoddy offensive line play. Longhorns allowed 175 pressures last season, second most in the SEC. Only Alabama allowed more. They couldn't run the ball under 138 yards a game. That was the worst output of any Sarkisian-coached offense. They'll need a better offensive line play there. And we've talked about the talent spreading out. That might be where it's manifesting itself the most, because we've talked about 2 teams. I've said for both of them, they need better offensive line play. We're about to talk about the team that Dan thinks, I believe, is going to win the conference, and their offensive line left plenty to be desired a year ago as well. He couldn't run the ball either. It's Oklahoma. Dan, I think you like Oklahoma a lot. You like them to win the league?
I think Oklahoma can win the league. I think if there's a team I am a little higher on than everybody else, it's the Sooners. And absolutely that offensive line is a problem that the offense has to take a big step up this year. That's the case against it. That is clear. Here's what I like about Oklahoma. I'm talking to people in the NFL. There's a lot of scouts who say, look, they may have the most NFL draft picks in the SEC on their roster. 8 for sure, 9, 10. There might be 15 guys on that roster for the 2027 draft that scouts are really interested in watching. When you start getting a roster at this bit into that double digits of potential draft picks, you've got really good players all over the place. They're not all going to be great. They're not all first round guys or anything like that. But can they have that kind of depth of talent to go forward? And then what can you get out of John Mateer? Really, he's a gamer. He's a really good player. Can he continue to step up? So I actually like the depth of talent. I like their schedule. It's tough, but I like what they can do. I like them coming in against Texas in that Red River game, and I'm just high on the whole Oklahoma package this year. If I'm picking a team to win the SEC, I'm going with the Sooners.
So I'm gonna double down on one of Dan's points, and then I'm gonna give us our first hijack warning of the day. I'm gonna do a little hijack question because you said something, Dan, about Texas and 3 losses that I think is relevant to a bunch of things here, and we'd probably talk about it at some point. So the most interesting part of Oklahoma having double-digit potential NFL draft picks is that they probably don't have any first-round draft picks. So they have it's a little bit like Texas A&M last year, which might have ended up having somebody in the first round, but there was no like surefire sitting in midsummer, but they probably had
David Stone. That's about it.
So,
yeah. I
so,
agree though. Yeah.
So whether that's David Stone is the 48th pick in the draft, the defensive tackle, Satania is a very good player, but he's not going to be a first round pick either because of his size. And probably their best NFL prospect is Michael Fasusi, the left tackle, who is a true sophomore and is going to have to wait another year, so he wouldn't go this time. So, believer in Oklahoma for that. Jake Michaela, the center who likely got drafted, did get banged up in camp the other day. Full extent of the injury isn't known, but that's something to keep an eye on. They've had a lot. They had a laundry spin cycle of O linemen last year, and Michaela, losing a draft pick center would be a big deal for John Mateer in that world. But what do we think of SEC teams with 3 losses? Oklahoma would fit this if they lose at Michigan. Texas would fit this if they lose to Ohio State. Like, are we now comfortable after Alabama last year with 3-loss SEC Big Ten teams making the playoff? Because that was a bit of a Rubicon that I think we had to jump through mentally, Rece.
Maybe, Pete, but I think it depends on which 3 and how you played.
Sure.
And the reason I say that is it was a really difficult situation for the committee in terms of evaluating this, because if you left out 3-loss Alabama last year, you left out the team, as we mentioned off the top of this, that emerged atop the tiebreaker, however you wanted to look at that, was the quote-unquote home team in the SEC championship game, who had already beaten the team that beat them. They had wins against 4 straight ranked opponents, and really they only had one, terrible loss. They played terribly and lost the Oklahoma game by 2, but the terrible loss was to Florida State. So you had to evaluate whether all of those things I just mentioned that were positive outweighed the other things. So it all depends. Like, I didn't think Texas or Vanderbilt really had a case last year to make the playoff. And it wasn't because of number of losses. It was because of how they played, the subjective quality of the committee. So, I think it depends. It depends on who you lost to. How did you play? How did you look in your wins? I thought as big an argument against Texas, for instance, last year was the way they looked in a couple of their wins. They were fortunate to beat Kentucky. They were fortunate to beat Mississippi State. Now, you get credit for the wins. People say, well, you're not giving them credit for winning. Yes, you are, or else you're not discussing them at all. So, part of it then becomes an evaluation of how you played. So with the SEC or the Big Ten teams, for that matter, that come out of there with 3 losses, do you have something on your resume other than we just lost some close games? Do you have some wins to go with it? And how did you look in your other games? That's the defining factor for me, more so than whether you lost 2 or 3 games or whatever.
I certainly have no problem with it. I don't think the number of losses should matter. I'll put it this way: the result to me of Texas Ohio State, and unless that game is completely lopsided, which we would be, unexpected. Somebody wins 42-7 or something. But if this is a close game, it's a great game. That should be a bonus for the team that won, and should not be an adverse, a negative at all for the team that lost. If anything, it should be treated the same way as if they had gone out and played some directional school. We have to get over the 0 losses at the top, then 1, then 2, and then maybe there's a 3. You've got to beat somebody. We have to encourage these non-conference games, or they're going to go away. And if you're punishing those teams, now that's under the expectation that both Ohio State and Texas are really good at the end. Same thing. If Oklahoma and Michigan are both really good at the end, I don't really care if one team won or one team lost that game. Now, if Michigan beats Oklahoma and then they end up 7-5, yeah, that's gonna matter. So, but to me, the Ohio State Texas game should be a bonus for whoever wins it, no problem for whoever loses it, and just like, hey, no problem, great game, we didn't win, on to the next thing. And so if you got an extra loss that way, obviously we're gonna have a whole bunch, nine games. I mean, we're gonna hear nonstop from the SEC playing 9 conference games, and it's true. Look, they've got a lot of great teams. They got a lot of great players. They probably have the most NFL draft picks. They have a great environments. It's a terrific league. Just hasn't won the national title, but I'm sympathetic to a point on this. But you got to play well. To Rece's point, you don't get extra credit for just beating anybody in the SEC anymore either.
I think that's the whole thing. You need something on your resume other than we played close against a good team. You need something else to go with it. And if you do, I 100% agree with Dan, because we need to promote these games. And secondly, it's just a realistic way to evaluate the teams. Even beyond trying to send a message, it's just, deciding that, Texas, for instance, is not worthy if they lost to Ohio State, yet, lost a couple of other games against good teams, but also had a couple of wins. Can't be like that. You just have to evaluate the game for what it is and give it its proper credit. To wrap up Oklahoma, the one thing that could go wrong with them, I think, would be that they're a one-sided team again. They're overly dependent on their defense, not only to stop teams, but to score. I mean, they pulled 2 games out of the fire last year on the road because their defense got huge scores, Tennessee and Alabama. John Mateer puts the ball in harm's way too often, as he has many times, and it's not just a result of his thumb injury. And the schedule that you mentioned, they've got a lot of tough games. Only Georgia is a true road game, but Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M turns out to be a little bit too much. So, Pete, let's go to Ole Miss. Trinidad Chambliss finds a friendly judge. They come back with, I think, maybe an overlooked and underrated defensive front that could be massive. They have the best quarterback in the league, at least the most proven one. He and Arch Manning will probably vie for first-team All-SEC, at least as we sit here in the preseason. Are you bullish on Ole Miss? Do you lean case for, case against, and what are those?
Well, let's start with case 4 and have a little fun here. Case 4 is the game against LSU is in Oxford, and they have Judge Robert Whitewell. All right. And Judge Robert Whitewell is a competitive advantage in the SEC. All right. 93 minutes was his ruling to get Trinidad. But it was obvious in the 3rd minute he was going to give him that.
I listened. I sat there and listened to that entire
for all 93 minutes. I was supposed to take my wife out on a date for Valentine's Day. All right. And it got completely wiped out because Judge Whitewell, that was like a manifesto. I didn't even manifesto. Manifestos aren't that long, right? Like that was
you could read through the entire opinion dissent, if there was a dissent, I don't know, or concurring opinions of like Brown versus Board of Education or some in a third of the damn time of this 93 minutes he took to explain his ruling on why Trinidad Chambliss should be allowed to play. Like, this was the great legal argument that had fluxumed America for centuries, and this one guy and this little town judge had finally cracked it out, figured the legal reasoning to solve this societal problem of, does Trinidad get another year? 90. Oh my. That guy stole 90 minutes from me. He could have just said 5-star judge, though. Rebels got a 5-star judge. So good point, Pete. Back to
Trinidad told me he was really, really nervous during that time. You guys are acting like this was some foregone conclusion.
I don't bet against any local judge in an SEC town, especially in Mississippi. So I truly
Are you familiar with the slander and libel laws in the state of Mississippi? Because you might just get familiar with them based on what you just said, Pete Thamel.
Yes. I truly hope before that game, week 3, and I don't want to get out over my skis, Rece, but I think there's a chance we'll be there for College Game Day. We haven't announced it yet, but I think there's a chance we'll be there.
I keep my head on a swivel in the coming days for that announcement.
Oh, interesting.
Hint, hint.
I
might have been in a meeting today.
I want at Vaught Hemingway Stadium for Judge Whitewell's ruling, not all 93 minutes because we put the crowd asleep, but like the crescendo of that ruling to be played like right before kickoff to like the roar of the crowd. That is my challenge to the Ole Miss video board operators, who I know are huge College Game Day podcast fans, listening and preparing for that. That
get
would
judge
be,
up there.
You want to troll Lane Kiffin?
The judge needs to be on that.
That would be the ultimate
board,
troll of Lane Kiffin. Yeah.
Well,
you just a guest picker, Rece.
I was going to say you've just given me a fabulous idea for the scene set. I know that there will be what's his name? Whitewater. What's his name?
His name is Robert Whitwell.
Okay, not Whitewater, but probably some similarities. So
probably just as crooked. Yeah.
I might have to quote him in there, quote some of this 93 minutes of brilliance.
I just want to say it was unanimous. I thought it was unanimous. Brown versus Board of Education. Thankfully, my God, 9-0. It was a. Thankfully, but had there been dissent, you would have had time to read it. I mean, this is one of the most consequential rulings, right? 1,700 words, which, according to ChatGPT, so it must be right,
in American
would
history.
take 13 minutes to speak in normal speaking pace. 13 minutes. Trinidad Chambliss versus NCAA, 93 minutes. It just means more. This is what we're talking about, Big Ten fans. It just means more.
This is what I've said.
We're getting the full repertoire of that UMass liberal arts education, Rece. We got the economics flex earlier. Now we're getting a little history flex. Like, somewhere some of Dan's professors are nodding and smiling there. He didn't spend too much time drinking beer and writing columns at the Collegian.
I'm bullish on Ole Miss on the field.
Yes.
The portal's going to help him at tackle. They've got Kewan Lacey back. He tied the Ole Miss single-season record for single-season rushing yards with Quinshon Judkins. Defensive line, I mentioned, is legit. Will Eccles, one of the top tackles in all Power Fours, and Terrion Perkins is back. After the Clemson drama, Luke Farrelly, who was the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year at Cal, is there. He led all freshmen with 91 tackles. I think their defense is going to be really good. The case against them, no Lane, no Chaz Weiss Jr., John David Baker, though he is from that tree, can't recapture the same Trinidad magic. Golding can't tap into the natural emotion that helped Ole Miss last year after being jilted by Lane Kiffin. The offensive tackles aren't good enough. Middle of the secondary takes a step back. And how do they respond after the LSU game? All of those things could work against Ole Miss, but I think Ole Miss has a great shot to be a playoff team again next year.
I think the question is P. Golden, right? Case 4 is all the talent and the fact that Trinidad could be the best quarterback in college football. May not be the number one draft pick, may not be the pro, may not be this, I don't care. Since this guy got on the field wherever he's been unbelievable. Okay. And so he very well could be the best player. How good is P. Golden? Go ahead. Good.
Man, I'm going to, well, that'll be key. They seem to be behind him. They're really locked in, but I'm going to tell you, this Trinidad Chambliss, yeah, I would say this Trinidad Chambliss cat. Even if the judge might have irritated some people with his in-depth ruling, shall we say, he's an easy guy to root for. Now, whether you think he ought to be out there is probably a different matter. I have zero problem with it. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. We want a good product. Ole Miss is going to give us one. I think they're going to give us a great one in week 3. I think, and what will be great theater. You know, this just
give us a little snippet, Rece. You spent some time with Trinidad. Most of our listeners don't get to spend time with these guys. Like you did the official visit. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Rece Davis official visit with Trinidad. Just give us a sense of what he was like as a person, chat off camera.
You know what? People overuse it in the small sample size, but so humble. So you can't totally appreciate what it was like to walk around the square with Trinidad Chambliss. Horns honking, everybody, grandmothers to students to kids to, I think I might have said this earlier in the podcast, frat guys, whoever. They saw him, they wanted to be close to him, and he treated every interaction like he was flattered, surprised, and thrilled to be there, not in just friendly. He was a normal guy. Met his mom. Actually, after we finished the interview, because his dad would be there, he said, "Hey, I'm going to FaceTime my dad. He loves College Game Day." So I talked to his dad, talked to his brother on FaceTime right after. Great family, just soaking up their entire Oxford experience, and the people there love him. I mean, I joked with him in the piece that part of campus is 18 mile per hour speed limit for Archie Manning's jersey number. Part of it is 10 for Eli Manning's jersey number. And it might be 6 in the whole state outside of Starkville, if Ole Miss can actually win a national championship or something, or continue to do what he's done.
Do not give those Mississippi speed trap guys an idea here, Rece.
Mr. Wetzel, you were going 9 miles an hour. This is a 6 mile per hour zone.
Do not give some guy. I mean, listen, we love our law enforcement, but a few of you guys have been known to run some tricks. Run some tricks through the years. Let's not listen to that part of the podcast. 6 miles an hour.
Yeah. And once again, I'd like all the legal beagles in Mississippi to know that Dan Wetzel and Pete Thamel were the ones casting aspersions at your way. I would like to continue to travel freely throughout the Magnolia State if I could. Other playoff team from the SEC last year, Texas A&M. A lot to replace in a lot of different ways. You got a case for the Aggies to go back and not only make the playoff, but maybe win the SEC, Dan?
Yeah, Marcel Reed. He's dynamic. He's competitive. Went up there and won that game up at Notre Dame. Was the end of the season not great? Absolutely. Right? Did not play well against Texas. Did not play well enough against Miami. That's the question on him, but he's back. He's talented. And Mike Elko's continually built a really, really strong roster around him, both in high school recruiting and in the portal. Elko's really Marcel Reed's my reason why they could win it. Question is, again, schedule's nasty. Offensive line needs to be totally reworked. How good is that? How many guys are they getting out of the portal? Those are your questions. But this team's got a ton of potential, and it's one of those years after last year where I think for the first time in a while, it's a second consecutive year where A&M can go in and say, hey, we're thinking about being 11-1 again, or we're thinking about a deep playoff run, and not everyone's looking at them sideways. They made a big jump last year. Can they make another one this year?
I'm going to jump on the case for their defensive line. I feel like I've been defensive line heavy in this podcast, and that's okay. This is the SEC. That's what got it, that generation of dominance that they had. DJ Hicks, the defensive tackle, is the best player on the roster. He is your quintessential SEC 6'3", 300-pound mauler. 3 sacks last year, come from the interior, 6.5 TFLs. Those are fairly big numbers. He's the player on defense that the staff is highest on. I think from a pure numbers perspective, they have Anto Saka flying off the edge. He's a high production guy from his time at Northwestern. Brings over 10 career sacks and in almost 15 TFLs. He's a guy who could get loose in Mike Elko's system and really do a good job. And then the other big fellow they have inside is the North Carolina transfer who came in at defensive tackle, CJ Mims, who's a big hoss. They got him at 312. I think that's probably a few biscuits short. So I think that's where A&M's strength and identity will be. There are a bunch of other questions though. Like they don't have the depth of NFL talent that they had the year before. And Dan mentioned it, and I'll echo it. Can they block them up front, and will they come together up front? I think that's where the case begins and ends for Texas A&M on that O-line this year.
So Texas A&M on the offensive line, I think they got 4 guys out of the portal, SEC rivals, 4 starters who have at least 50-plus career starts among them coming in to try to protect Marcel Reed. Hope he's taken another step in those tight quarter situations in the passing game. Certainly a dynamic player. They do have a first-time play caller, offensive coordinator in Holman Wiggins, with Colin Klein moving on to be the head coach at Kansas State. I think that's something that bears watching if you are somewhat skeptical about them. But they often have a bit of a margin for error because under Elko, they're going to create negative plays. They're going to get sacks. They're going to force turnovers. They're going to be disruptive. That's just how the defense is built. I think they're pretty good. They're good enough in the back end. They've got to replace Cassius Howell. Pete mentioned Saka. I think A&M will be very good. Look at the schedule right now. They do have to go to LSU. They're at Alabama. They're at South Carolina. They're at Oklahoma. And, of course, they finish with Texas. So it's, there's some daunting challenges in there. And I probably gave away something on the part 2 of the podcast here by the fact that I mentioned at South Carolina. But that's not in the contenders part. That'll be in part number 2. What is in part number 1 among the contenders, team to make a pro case for or a con case against? Pete, are you aboard the Lane train? Huge transfer portal haul, got the number 1 tackle, maybe the number 1 quarterback out of it. First year, bringing some difference makers in from Ole Miss, picking up other guys other places. LSU, case for and a case against.
Namaste, Rece. Namaste. Our favorite yogi has a squad. He's got a squad. They're a problem. Talked to a scout who was through there so far for camp, and interesting roster dynamic, which makes sense. They likely have 4 first-round picks this year. Lane has been really high on Sam Levitt, like really, really high on Sam Levitt. And Lane doesn't tend to be a gusher about guys, so I'm gonna take those little kibbles and bits he's placed to say we're gonna see a lot more 2024 Sam Levitt than 2025 Sam Levitt when he hurt his Liz Frank and was never really himself. So you got a first round quarterback, you have an incumbent tight end in Trey Green, who'll be a first round pick. He's a monster. Jordan Seaton, left tackle. He'll be a single-digit draft pick. He's going to be the top tackle off the board. He's been incredible for them so far. And then the name people don't know as well is the safety Ty Benefield, who came from Boise, who really probably could have been picked fairly high last year, decided to play one more season. And he's really been one of the buzzes of scouting circles in this offseason. They not only feel like I've talked to people who not only feel like he can be a first round safety, but maybe even like a higher end first round safety. And there aren't a lot of safeties who go that high. That's not a premium position. The problem with LSU, so this case for the problem against is they probably aren't going to have double digit guys picked. Like the high end is really high, and that it's indicative of the portal haul. They lack depth, especially in the secondary. If these judges' rulings domino out, and especially if you can add other players from the SEC, don't be surprised if LSU really focuses on class of 2022 defensive backs. That is the place where they are light. They're not great at tailback either, but they are really thin at defensive back. So, but right now, it's easy to believe. Namaste.
I mean, they do got DJ Pickett, number 5 on your scorecard. He was.
I love old number 5.
For 5. He was good enough that Elaine's like, Jaden Daniels, what? Who? What's that? Love DJ Pickett. His confidence was amazing in that whole brouhaha. If you didn't know, he's got number 5, and maybe Jaden Daniels didn't like him wearing number 5. Hard to say, but he goes, this is the number promised me. He goes, Jaden Daniels used to have it. He was good. He's a good player. He called him a good player. Like, yeah, I mean, other than the Heisman and immediate like winning playoff games as a rookie at Washington. He was good. He goes, he did good here.
Why did they trot DJ Pickett out that day to talk to the media? Like that was like, let's pour gasoline on this story where our former Heisman Trophy winner's suing us. Let's just toss some gas on that. What a good idea. Sorry,
that's because we need that. It's Louisiana, whatever, man. By LSU controversies,
yes.
This doesn't even rank in the top 20.
Yeah, man. People,
a little scrap over number.
That's how many players Will Wade has now.
Yeah, he's got
5.
his number of players as a basketball team.
But
school started.
And by rule, there's only one number at LSU that a football player can't wear. Just one.
They got a couple.
It's number 20. Billy Cannon.
All right.
That's the
then
only
they've got like others. 7 is
that's the only one that you can't wear.
Sacred numbers. I mean,
7 and 18 are sacred numbers, but they award them annually. For 18 epitomizes the LSU spirit. Jacob Hester was the first to wear that. 7 is sort of like the stud guy. Tyrann Mathieu wore it. Patrick Peterson wore it. Yeah, I think Leonard Fournette had it. 7 is a big deal. 7 probably a big deal because Burt Jones wore it back before they awarded it. So, and yes, our producer said Honey Badger, also known as Tyrann Mathieu. Yes, that's it. I'm sorry, Chris. Producer Chris said Honey Badger. Yes, given the name on his birth certificate is not Honey Badger. It's Tyrann Mathieu.
Should be.
It should be, right. It could be. That's right. But no, that's been a sacred number. A quick quiz time. Can you name 2 other numbers? There might be more. I don't know 2 off the top of my head. 2 other numbers that you can't wear at LSU in different sports.
Oh, in different sports.
Yeah.
Maravich's number. What was it? 44?
Correct. 23 in college. That's correct.
23. Okay.
23 at LSU and 30. And Shaq was 33.
Shaq.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, I hate this because LSU fans are going to get on me for this. Maybe somebody can Google it or I can real fast. I think Bob Pettit's number in basketball also you cannot wear, and it's escaping me what that number is right now. I think there are 3 numbers in basketball.
They'll be angry at you, Rece, for not knowing Bob Pettit's number off the top of your head.
Only Billy Cannon is the number.
We'll forgive Rece on that.
Here's the thing. The last thing I'll say about numbers and all of this. 50. Producer Adrian coming up with 50 according to AI for Bob Pettit.
Adrian's a big Bob Pettit fan. Yeah, that's her generation.
So it's more our generation, but
not my generation.
Actually,
not even mine.
You're catching me. Not even mine. I know. I did not. I didn't even see Maravich play in college. So obviously saw him play in the NBA, but not.
Have you ever read the book Pistol by Mark Kriegel?
Yep, I have.
That's a great book. One of the greatest sports books ever written.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Tremendous.
Oh, just what a encapsulation of the community there. Awesome book.
Here, everybody can do with their numbers what they want. You want to retire the number, fine. But if you can if you can wear 15 at Florida, sorry, DJ Pickett can wear 5 at LSU. If you don't want him to, that's fine. That's your business. But
when I was at Syracuse,
they had guys running around out there in 15, and for years they only let defensive guys wear 11 at Florida because that's what Spurrier wore. But I mean, Tim Tebow, come on, man. If you can wear 15 at Florida, you can wear 5 or 9 or anything else at LSU, but not 20.
So I'm going to go on a little rant here. When I was at Syracuse, the number 44 was passed down to the best football, basketball, and lacrosse players. They all, or lacrosse at 22, but whatever. It was like a thing. The bar was called 44s that everyone drank at. I'm sure Dan drank at that bar at some point.
Excellent bar there. Yeah, that place.
Yeah, it was a great bar.
They were ready to give me the number after a couple of late nights. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and Pete, most of our listeners would know, but since you're the Syracuse guy, tell them the heritage of it, the great running backs who had 44.
So it goes back to Jim Brown, right, is where it starts. Floyd Little wore it. Ernie Davis, I believe, wore it as well. So, I mean, you're talking about like iconic best of, best in class guys wore this. And so if you were recruited and they said you could wear 44, it's a huge deal. When I was there, Rob Conrad was a All-American out of Massachusetts. He wore 44 as a draft pick, was a good player. But like Derek Coleman wore it. John Wallace wore it in basketball the year they went to the Final Four when I was in school. So anyway, it was like a real thing of prestige. And then, somewhere in the early 2000s, they retired it, which was the dumbest thing they could have ever done, because it took away this really cool piece of like the school's heritage in 3 sports. And so I just feel like weaponize your numbers, people. Don't take them and put them away. Like weaponize them. And Syracuse had a weapon in that, and they just totally flopped on it. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't see why people don't have the logic to follow through and say, hey, let's re-celebrate Tim Tebow with the 50 or whatever. Everybody's got their stars, right? Yeah. No. And that's, yes. But just pick your iconic guy and celebrate through him and remember him in that way. Like, don't just throw him in the closet with mothballs. So stupid.
Hey, I'm going to get us back on. No, I'm going to get us back on track here, but I want to learn something about you two guys right here. I think it's SC. I don't know if you automatically retire all the numbers, but I believe Matt Leinert's numbers retired, and he's been asked at different times permission to wear. If you had a number, Dan Wetzel, retired in your honor, been retired because you had this great legendary career, and a freshman came to you and said, I want to wear what's your favorite number, Dan? Let's make this real. What's your favorite number? What's your jersey number? What jersey number would you wear? 8.
We'll go with 8.
I love it. Number 8. Always wanted to wear number 8. We didn't have one. Okay, number 8. They said
Cam
they
Neely.
want to wear that
Cam
Wetzel,
Neely, but yeah.
That Wetzel number 8. Are you granting permission or not?
I don't know. Don't you have to pay? These kids are pros now. You got to pay me. I want a little cut of the. I don't know.
They can't wear 8 to Antonio's to eat late night pizza to the same with the same degree Dan did.
I know this. Let me put this. I know that Pete's favorite bar was Fagan's up there, and there's a bar stool retired with Pete Thamel's name right on that thing. I think that's what I heard. Would I allow
somebody wanted to?
Yeah, probably. But what if he ends up better than me? I don't know. I mean, then like why? I don't. I probably would. I'd probably allow it. What do I care?
Yeah.
Football's, I mean, there's like 150 guys on the team. Someone's got to have a number. It's not like basketball. There's plenty of numbers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like you want someone sitting on your bar stool or wearing your number because it's like a little piece and a reminder to everybody of what you did there. That's all. Like, I think it's very simple. I saw Matt Leinert's comments on that. And look, I never won a Heisman Trophy. I never won a national championship. I'm not going to pretend to do it. But, he comes off a little selfish. Like in those answers in my opinion. I mean, like, what are you supposed to say? Like, is that the best for your alma mater? Is it better for USC that he rejects that for his own ego? Or is it better that like some really good player can come and try to match him?
Yeah. I don't know. Our friend Matt Leiner's now saying, how'd I catch strays in this thing?
Yeah, he caught a stray.
Isn't his...
But he was like proud of it.
Your name is still up in the LA Coliseum, right? Like, it's not like you get taken down.
Yes.
So if there's multiple guys with the number,
you're not cares? They're not going to take away the tabloid pictures of him canoodling with Paris Hilton. Like, the whole thing. He did it. It was awesome. It was fun to watch. And by another number 8 being there, we remember all that. And it was cool.
Yeah.
Yes, Matt Leiter hit all the Hall of Fames, just not the one in
He's
Canton.
in all the Hall. He did
Oh,
LA right,
man.
man. That guy did USC. Oh, he did it all right.
He did. God
Yeah.
bless him. God bless him.
A guy who didn't do LA quite as well is hoping to do LSU much better. And Lane Kiffin has yet to win a conference championship or a national title as a Power 4 head coach. And I think the schedule is pretty friendly to LSU. The case against them would be it just doesn't come together quickly. Sam Leavitt was hurt last year. It explains a lot, but he was toward the bottom of the Big 12 in QBR coming off an injury. I know they got Trinidad Chambliss up to speed without the help of spring ball, but maybe it's a little slower there. They lose games while finding their way. They lose their momentum. That will be the case against LSU, but I think there's too much going for it and too much talent around for LSU to fall off and not make some type of run at it, but so much is going to hinge on the first 3 weeks of the season. How do they do against Clemson? Figure they've got more talent than Clemson. First 4, and then then that Ole Miss
A&M
game. If you don't win that Ole Miss game, and by the way, if there is a time to catch LSU and Ole Miss, A&M is doing it to LSU the week after that game, and Ole Miss has to go to Florida. I mean, those are, you want to talk about the ultimate trap games. I feel like that as we wrap this up, we need to hit a couple more teams here real quickly that are kind of on the cutting line of contention in the SEC.
Oof. Did we get diverted, Rece? I don't remember. Why
it's okay. People like that in their podcast sometimes.
Totally.
Sometimes. Whether they like it now, we'll see.
Brown versus Board of Education. Supreme Court Justice Warren. Fagan's Pub. I mean, we've gone random in here. Matt Leinart. Paris Hilton got mentioned in there.
Canoodling.
Maravich.
Yeah. Poor Matt Leinart. Matt.
A lot's happened.
I'm sorry.
A lot's happened.
A lot has happened.
I know what hasn't happened. So
and a lot has happened.
Tide ain't been mentioned, Rece. You're going to be in a lot of trouble if you don't get this first spot.
They're about to right now. We tried to find a dividing line. I think all of us agree that Alabama's right on the cut line between maybe contender or, in the next episode of the SEC pod, would be kind of sleeper breakthrough, things going wrong. You have a case for Alabama, Dan?
Well, look, there's still a lot of really good players, and you got a really good coach, I think. Keelan Russell's got a hit. That's going to be the big situation there. And, they're replacing Ty Simpson, who's already showing he's awful good. So the question mark at quarterback, but you got Kalen DeBoer. He's very good with quarterbacks and all that. Running game wasn't great last year. There's a lot there not to love about Alabama. They were good. They were a good team. They were not a great team, and when they ran into great teams, they really struggled. So, how much of that talent is still there? We'll see. They're going to have to contend for a national title, which I think is kind of this debate is, or win the SEC. A lot's got to go well for Alabama. This is maybe the new normal. The fact that we've reeled off 6 teams and finally get into the Crimson Tide.
So, we'll start with Keelan Russell because Dan mentioned him. As of Monday, August 17th, sitting here right now, they have not made a decision on quarterback at Alabama.
But
Austin Mack has been there. He's with those guys at Washington with Grubb and DeBoer. There's a battle, but just the conversation in the last 72 hours has shifted to Keelan Russell pretty significantly. So it's not done. It's not over. I'd be surprised at this point if Keelan Russell's not the starter. Things can change. Camps can be funny. They have an opener against East Carolina where you probably end up seeing both just in some capacity or another. But right now, Keelan Russell is, I would say, the favorite to win that to win that starting job over Austin Mack. The case for Alabama to me is they have the best secondary in the country. Xavier Brown, Dijon Lee, Bray Hubbard at safety, Keon Sabb, the Michigan transfer at safety, and Red Morgan at the nickel. They call it the Husky, whatever it is. I feel like that is just one of the highest end quality units, back ends in the country. And that's where everything begins and ends for Alabama on this defense. They are also very bullish on their defensive front, saying it's one of the better ones they've had there in the last 6 or 7 years. But I have conviction on that secondary and conviction on that defensive front. So we'll see. We'll see if they can regather some of that defensive identity as the offensive line settles in, as the new quarterback settles in, and as they try to establish themselves on the side of the ball.
That defensive front you're talking about is a guy they paid reportedly 7 figures for, and Devin Tompkins from USC. They're very happy with the way he's played up to this point. You heard Kane Womack talk a little bit about his conversations with Nick Saban and perhaps even finding different times to play a larger variety of coverages than they have in the past. I think they're going to be fine defensively. The whole thing comes down to me, the offensive line. I find it really easy to root for Austin Mack, not against Keelan Russell, but just simply because he's been around, still a young guy. He's just 20 years old, even though he's in his 4th year of college football. He's a super impressive guy to be around. I mean, this is the kind of guy, you want your daughter to bring home, you want your son to be friends with, all of this kind of thing. He's a tremendous leader. Now, Russell, by all accounts, and I haven't spoken to him as often or as much, but he, by all accounts, too, has great leadership qualities and is, I think one of his teammates described him as dynamite in a bottle. And he also could help the growing pains on the offensive line because he is, while Mack is certainly not a statue, he's more the quintessential pocket passer. Russell, also pocket passer, but a little more explosive in terms of movement. And the offensive line was just not very good last year. And as a result, the running game wasn't good. And, I think the case for them is that maybe the guys on the offensive line and the quarterbacks are a little more comfortable doing everything that DeBoer and Grubb have historically done in their offense with quick passes, RPOs where the ball spit out very quickly, things that maybe Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson weren't as prone to do. These guys might be a little bit more prone to do. That could take some pressure off the traditional running game. That's the case for. The case against is that there are so many unknowns. Quarterback, offensive line. Do they have a game-changing running back? Can Ryan Coleman Williams now overcome his sophomore slump season and become a dynamic playmaker? Those are the things against Alabama. A lot will be told in the early part of the season. They've got a very tricky game early on at Kentucky. Kentucky's portal haul is a lot beefier than you might think on the surface. We'll get to them. Kentucky's not a contender, but they could really change the narrative and the dynamic in Tuscaloosa with that week 2 game in Lexington. And of course, Alabama has Georgia later on and some other big games as well. Alabama is they've got South Carolina, who I've touched on. They have to go to Tennessee. They have to go to LSU. So, schedule is not overly daunting for Alabama, even though, they do have Georgia coming in as well. But it's solid. They don't have to play Texas. So they're missing Oklahoma in the regular season right now. Got Georgia at home. So a chance there. There are a lot of questions surrounding the Crimson Tide. The other team I have right on the edge here, and it'll be the last one we do in this episode, and it'll give us half the league, I think. And I think the biggest question, start with the con on Tennessee, and that'll be quarterback, because you just don't know. But the flip side of that, Pete, is that you got Josh Heupel, and a lot of times at quarterback, if you don't know, it doesn't matter. He'll still find a way to make them productive.
Yeah, the quarterback numbers for Heupel and just the overall offensive production and scoring numbers for Heupel going back to UCF and to Tennessee, I mean, they're remarkably consistent. And I believe this is going to be his 5th different starter, Rece, in his 5 years there. Is that right? Is that stat ring true?
Yeah, it sounds right. You've got Hendon Hooker, you got Joe Milton, you've got Nico Iamaleava, you got Aguilar, and then this would be number 5, right? Yeah.
Yes. So the early vibe on this race, and not settled yet, and we'll probably go right up to the opener, but is that Faison Brandon if I had to, make a call today, like an election call, Faison Brandon, who's the more dynamic of the two, would be a nose ahead of George McIntyre right now. Nobody's been ready to call it there yet, and there's certainly Josh Heupel's a big believer in competition, but Faison Brandon is believed to have an edge there. As we sit here on Monday, the 17th of August, some time left. As it goes there, the the key to me at Tennessee is going to be Deshaun Bishop. They've had sneaky great rushing numbers. They've actually led the SEC in rushing during Heupel's time there, which a lot of people wouldn't think because they're, it's the spread and it's the tempo and it's everything like that. So, if Deshaun Bishop emerges as an SEC Player of the Year type guy, which is very realistic, unbelievable story from a walk-on. To me, that's going to be the bell cow for Tennessee as it goes through, finds itself. It's a shame Arian Carter is going to be suspended for the first 2 games. I think of all the ridiculous NCAA decisions we've seen, that's really highly among them.
It's like they went back to the old "did you have cream cheese on the bagel" rule for this one. This is so stupid, it's unimaginable.
Hairline ticket.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, $427.48.
And he's going to pay it back. So who cares? Like, there aren't rules anymore, people. We just need to get on with this.
And then this whole deal stems from the fact that it was agent related and professional related. Look, I got news for you, man. If you're paying 6 figures for an interior offensive lineman, which most of these schools are, everybody's pros, and you can't tell somebody they can't play. Well, you obviously can because they did. You shouldn't tell somebody they can't play over a lousy airline ticket when they were deciding whether to go in the draft. That's the dumbest thing imaginable. Arian Carter should play and should play now, and they should change it. Like, change the ruling now.
It's I think Josh Heupel called it bull, and I think that is
the first time you've ever sworn on this podcast?
I was quoting him, Rece. I was quoting him. So, when we brought
Pete's
Dan on
get
the
a
pod,
2-game
I think
suspension.
our swearing rules.
I swear. I've been sworn.
Pete gets a 2-segment suspension for swearing on.
Yeah, Rece, that kind of salty language is very offensive to someone like me. I don't even know what that word really is. It was like a dead cat bounce for the NCAA rule book. Like, wait, this thing's back? Like, what? Stupid. Embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's just like it's $500 plane ticket. You're going to suspend a guy for 1978? Like, my goodness. Who knows? Tennessee's they have to avoid the avoidable loss. And that's what's got them on too many games. Obviously, last year, losing Iamaleava, they were in a tough spot. And they have recruited incredibly well. Faison's a highly rated recruit coming in. I'm very interested to see. Phenomenal athlete. He's a great basketball player too. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do there and if Heupel goes that route. But just overall, if they can avoid the avoidable loss, is going to be a huge thing for me on Tennessee. How consistent they get, but a lot of faith in that program and a lot of faith in Josh Heupel.
I think there are more cases against Tennessee than for them in terms of winning the conference. We've talked about the quarterback. The other one is as good a hire as it is to bring in Jim Knowles. And I know he brought in some people from Penn State. And then there was the unfortunate situation with Chaz Coleman, who's been medically disqualified from the program, who knew the Knowles system. But typically, it's taken a year or two. It took Ohio State a little bit to really lock in on the Knowles system. How quickly would that be? That would be the case against them for me. But by the way, if you are a Tennessee season ticket holder, and there are a lot of them, how about this home schedule? Texas, Alabama, LSU. That's not even to mention Auburn, which might be a huge one and sort of a nice game to see back on the schedule since the SEC went into divisions and that game wasn't played as often as it was way back in the day. So nice to have that one back. But that's a great home schedule for the Big Orange. Guys, let's wrap up this contender pod. I think we sort of alluded to it. Give me the two teams you expect to play in the SEC championship game and who will win it. Pete, you go first.
All right. I am going to go with Texas and LSU. And I expect Texas to win it. I am a believer in not only Arch, but the accumulated talent around him, the upgrade at DC. And I think Texas, pound for pound, has the most talent in the country.
Dan?
I'm going to take Longhorns.
I got Texas versus Oklahoma in Atlanta, and they will set the SEC record for number of fights the night before in the bars of Atlanta. There'll be bring Red River to Atlanta. I mean, look, the SEC has some great
that
rivalries,
would be fun.
but what other game has they had to change the name from the Red River Shootout because people were actually shooting each other? They had to they were taking it literally. So it's now the Showdown, right? Red River Showdown. Well, they're going to Atlanta. How about that? Imagine that game in Atlanta. That's what I see happening. Sooners win it.
Okay, Sooners win. Is that a Sooner sweep? Do they win?
Sooner sweep. I'm all in on the Sooners.
Do it again.
I'm all in on the Sooners.
Right.
Boomer Sooner.
He's swole on the Sooners like Mateer himself.
They're going to be so excited. They're going to let me ride the schooner around. I'm going to ride that. They'll probably tip over again, but whatever. I don't know too much about horses other than betting on them.
Do you know the two horses that pull the schooner, right?
I don't know a lot about horses.
Boomer.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I got to say, Oklahoma, they're not that creative. Like, I don't think they, of course they would name them Boomer and Sooner. But anyway, Sooners are going to win the SEC. How about that?
I'm going to go way out on a limb, something highly unusual. And I said facetiously, Georgia and Texas. Georgia wins because that's what Georgia does. They win the SEC. Until Texas beats them, I'll need to see it to believe it. Maybe Coach Boom will change things around. That's the first part of our two-part SEC preview here on the College Game Day podcast. We'll break down some sleepers, some big-time questions coming up in the SEC on the next edition. Thanks for listening. You can download this wherever you prefer to get your podcast or subscribe and never miss a single episode. Second episode, rest of the SEC coming up in a matter of days. Thanks for being with us.